Thank you very much, Tasteless and Pig. Of course, we'll be seeing more of those guys later on. For now, of course, though, let's tell everybody about how we even got here, because it has been a long, rigorous, and testing trial for any StarCraft individual out there. We started with 76 players as a whole. 64 of those went into open brackets, and they were able to find themselves a good spot in terms of advancing on. From there, 12 players and another 12 players from our online qualifiers went into the group stage, and we ended up with this bracket right here. So guys, looking at this bracket, how it unfolded, the round of 12 into the round of 8 and then to the round of 4. Did you have upsets, surprises?
I tell you, I think that there was one big upset with aLive taking down Innovation. That was such an epic best of 5, reaching the final game, so close, a nail-biter to the end. But to have the best player in the world, Innovation, taken out by aLive, that's a bit of an upset.
Yeah, we mentioned also yesterday, just before finishing with the show, that 3 of the players in the semifinals here were actually in the same group. This really goes to show how stacked this tournament actually was. And even a previous champion, Zest, lost in one of the earlier rounds here in this bracket. So really goes to show, again, how many of these good players are there. And we've got a couple surprises in the Final Four, with aLive, I think, being the biggest one. I
think one of the, again, as you mentioned, one of the big surprises is a lot of people looked at Innovation as one of the big favorites to even claim the entire tournament, but aLive was able to take him out. How was he able to do such a feat in terms of a TvT where Innovation is normally looking so strong?
Well, aLive is just on fire right now. Like, he's been performing very well online all year long, and he's finally brought it to an offline event. He killed his group, and then he killed Innovation, and there's not a lot more to say. Like, he's playing out of his mind. These are absolutely the best games of his life here in Katowice.
And then, of course, all the way down to the bottom there in our round of 8, you do see Stats defeating Bjorn. That was a crushing defeat there from Bjorn. We saw tears of emotion. We saw a lot coming from that guy. Stats did advance on, right?
Yeah, and Stats, I think from that match, we can safely say he's the best Protoss in the entire world at this point. That victory against Bjorn was just so perfectly played. It was like awe-inspiring. Todd and I were on the desk watching that and just like, how is he doing this against Bjorn, who is one of the 4 horsemen of Terra? And this guy is a monster. He wins his group. He's a defending world champion. You expect him to maybe win here, but he's out already.
All right, well, let's move on to take a look at the round of 4 as well, because that's going to be our schedule for today. So we'll be starting things off with aLive going up against TY, then Dark going up against Stats, and of course, that all-important best of 7 grand final down the line. The first 2 semifinals, of course, going to be a best of 5 between these players. So I want to talk to you about who you think is going to be doing well today, because obviously these 4 players, spectacular caliber amongst them, but who is going to really shine? What do you think?
I would go for aLive. He's had a crazy road here to these semifinals. He aced his group, which again had 2 of the semifinalists here that he might end up facing, starting with TY. He beat TY earlier in the groups, and quite convincingly as well. That was a 2-0, made TY look like an easy match. Then he beat Innovation. With the road that he's had so far to the semifinals, to me, he's the clear favorite going to the Final Four.
Oh, gosh. I think I got to say, I do not agree with that. I'm not sure he'll even make it to the finals, but I think Stats is playing just the best StarCraft of his life right now. He's the best Protoss in the world, and if he keeps this up, he's going to finally win a tournament. This guy doesn't have a championship under his belt, and there's no better first tournament to win than IEM Katowice.
Of course, Dark was looking pretty good as well in terms of the Zerg versus Zergs that he's had to go through. But he hasn't had many more tests than that, I think. Him going up against Stats later on down the line, is that something that he's going to have to be very careful about, considering what you're saying about Stats?
Yeah, like right now, I think that Dark is having a hard time overall. Like, just the metagame shifts that we've had recently aren't really favoring Zerg that much.
Yeah.
But Dark is the one guy time and time again that can really deliver. So he might just bust out today and beat everybody. That is a possibility, but the way that Stats has been playing, he is going to have to bring his absolute A game and top tier strategies.
Many a fantastic moment that we've had here in Katowice so far. As you can see aLive there with his victory eventually over Innovation in a grueling series. Again, I think, you know, for a lot of people coming here to Katowice, watching this spectacle, the marvel that is the StarCraft tournament here, every year out, it's got a long line of history. You've got finalists like, you know, even champions like First, like SOS, like Zest and Pol, a long lineage of amazing players. And to start with 76 and break it down all the way to 4, it's a grueling, grueling test.
Yeah, no, it's the biggest open tournament of the year by far.
Yeah.
It's something that we're not even used to anymore in StarCraft. We have like so many online qualifier type things, but to just be like, hey, you think you can win a StarCraft tournament? Okay, come here and let's see. And here we are with the 4 best players in the world.
The StarCraft community is always so vocal about, you know, the tournament format. Sometimes we got too few games, sometimes too many. I think pretty much everybody agrees that this was one of the best tournaments in a long time in terms of how many games we got, how much action we got to see, and the quality of those games. So I've become a really big fan of this format here in this tournament, and I think a lot of other people have as well.
Yeah, we actually watched hundreds of StarCraft matches to break it down to our final 4. So without further ado, we can start talking about our first series of the day here. It is going to be aLive going up against TY, and where do we even begin? Let's start with aLive, because the way he has been able to show himself in this tournament, cause upset after upset, and cause absolute amazing games on his side has been phenomenal, to the point where, Todd, you believe he's your big favorite to take the championship.
Yeah, he's been quite flawless. Even in the series that he had against TY, I had a look at their Honor Ground game, and TY just kind of overextended a couple times. He made, to be honest, a few mistakes that were a little bit uncharacteristic. You know, in TvT, there is always this, when somebody has a sensor tower, you think that he's going to have defense there, so because you know that he knows, then you attack into the sensor tower. That's happened in TY against aLive, except there was like 6 siege tanks, and he had like a ton of Marines, so they just kind of like all got blown up. So I think TY, his focus here up against aLive, he's going to have to be through those details, just making sure he knows what he's going into every single time he goes for one of these drops, if we go into those longer games, which we are likely since it's a best of 5.
Yeah, I got to go on the other side of you again, though. Like, I think that TY he's the smartest Terran player in the world, really. Like, tactically, strategically, this guy makes very few mistakes, and he's going to fix any mistakes that he's found in his play. Yeah, he did lose to aLive in that group phase. aLive was playing like a man on fire. It was like some of the best games of his entire life. But I think stylistically, TY overall has an advantage against aLive. I think he's going to be able to deflect all of aLive's aggression and really hunker down and play a better set today.
Well, of course, having talked about aLive there, let's focus on TY a little bit, now that he has gone through the tournament in a little bit, again, of a grueling manner, I would say. He did take out Gumiho 3-2 in that quarterfinal. What stood out from you from TY? Going up against a more unconventional Terran compared to someone like an aLive?
Probably his flexibility, right? Like, he was really able, because Gumiho makes games so weird.
Yeah.
Like, he will just have different build orders, different timing attacks, and it just plays in a very unorthodox way in Terran versus Terran in really all matchups. But TY, unlike a lot of other Terrans, is able to just kind of flex like that. He's, you know, he's like Bruce Lee's water quote, right? He just, like, he's the shape of the cup that he's in at the time. And that's why he's such a strong player.
Be like water.
Yeah.
He had a few amazing moments. That replay that Roddy went over when TY got his main base scanned. He was out on the map, and he was like, you just scanned my main. You were thinking about dropping. There's probably a few medivacs out there filled with units. I'm just going to fly back and kill them all.
Yeah.
Flies back with the Vikings and kills all those medivacs filled. That was insane, actually. Like, this is championship caliber type of play, and I mean, TY not too long ago, he just won $200,000, and I'm pretty sure he is looking at that big check of $100,000 and looking to try and add that in, which if he did, actually, he will almost equal Beyond's last year, which was over $300,000, I think 300,016.
Yeah.
And we're only a couple months into the year.
Yeah, that's him
insane.
averaging $100,000 a month in victory.
That's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money.
He's become quite the guy indeed. So now looking at how these two are going to match up against one another, is there any particular styles that you think are going to come out in terms of surprises? We've already seen a lot of cheekier triple Rax Reaper plays at the start of series, or just kind of spattered towards the later stages? What do you think is going to come out from these two?
Well, aLive is a lot of the times the more aggressive player in the matchup. Like very often he wants to get in there and mix it up a little bit more. And I think that that does play into TY's style overall. He wants to react a little bit more. He wants to beat you in the longer kind of tactical game. And so if they kind of stay within their styles and comfort zones, I think it's slightly favored for TY. So there's a chance aLive wants to mix that up a bit.
All right, and then as I say, on TY's side, does he kind of bring more conventional styles to the table? Will we see, the one question I want to ask is, will we see any mech? I don't think so from these two players, but any thoughts?
No, I highly doubt it.
It's
extremely unlikely. What we've been seeing is just tanks, marines, medivacs, and great control over the map, great scans, great map awareness, and I'm pretty sure that's what we're going to see here once again. And TY, I don't think he has to play any special brand of Terran. Like you said, he's good enough, I think, to go head-to-head against aLive. He just has to make sure he's on his A game here. If he's having a bad day up against the same TY that we saw earlier in the group stage and in the brackets, TY will almost certainly not advance onto the finals.
Well, gentlemen, we're almost ready. I do want to get your predictions before we go into our semi-final here between aLive versus TY. What are you thinking, Artosis?
I am thinking TY is going to take this down 3-2. It's going to be close, it's going to be hard, but overall, I think he's a stronger player, and we'll see him in the finals.
Todd, your thoughts?
aLive 3-2, just straightforward. TY is going to fight back a little bit, but it's not going to be enough. Sorry, Artosis.
You believe that aLive is going to be able to bring it home after years of not, well, or at least getting to the finals after years of not being in a final. It might happen.
I was there firsthand, actually, in Las Vegas when he won the IPL, which was one of the most stacked tournaments of all time. And a lot of people were sitting there in disbelief. Not me. I was on his team at the time, practicing over in South Korea. This guy was training 24/7, and he's an incredible player who's not, a lot of the time, not given the credit he deserved here. So maybe he's going to earn that finally here today.
He stepped it up for sure, and now it is almost time to get ready for our first series here of the day in the Spodek Arena. So without further ado, Spodek, let's crown a champion here in day number 6 of the StarCraft tournament.
We play for the legacy. We play for the prestige. We play for the glory. We play for one goal.
Whoa, he got out! He goes down. Is in the form of his life. He was a champion!
Carrying the IEM trophy is president and co-founder of Blizzard Entertainment, Mike Morheim. Katowice, it is time. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Intel Extreme Masters, Katowice! We started with 76 players, and now after 5 days of StarCraft II action, we are down to just 4. These 4 players fight for their share of $250,000, as well as 16,500 WCS points. And it all comes down to this. Our first semifinal match features a Terran versus Terran, where our first player looks to make his first grand finals after nearly 5 years, while his opponent, the recent WESG champion, fights to take home a second title. Katowice, get ready for aLive at TY!
aLive versus TY. A Terran versus Terran for the ages. IEM Pig. Joining me is Rotterdam to commentate this match. Rotterdam, are you excited for this one?
I'm so excited, Pig. If you would have told me 4 years ago I'd be this excited about a TvT, I would have said you were lying. But this matchup has delivered over the week. I actually think the best games we've seen this week have been in TvT, even though some of the PvTs have been amazing. But aLive in particular, man, that game 5 against Innovation, that first game against Innovation, this man, it's like, he woke up and he's like, hey, in 2012, I was incredibly good at this game. I want to be godlike again, and he is.
He's brought out those magic pajamas, which are just serving him so well. He's been looking so good throughout this entire tournament, really on fire, and the big surprise in the group stage blazing through. Of course, facing off against TY, though, a veteran player, a player who was recently found winning his first championship over in China. He's found some great success, but he's had a little bit more of a hard run through this tournament so far, barely getting through that round of 8 just by the skin of his teeth.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a surprising semi-final, but if it would have happened, I would have said like, all right, I can see this. But then I expected TY to be the player that was completely stomping his group. Then I expected TY to take out Innovation. To see aLive do all those things, I think it's so impressive. And like the boys mentioned on the desk as well, they already went up against each other in the group stage. I'm sure that almost every diehard StarCraft fan looks at that. It's like, yeah, aLive is good, but TY is one of the big 4 Terrans out there. He's going to get the job done. He's going to win that group. But it was aLive getting that 2-0 victory, like Todd mentioned as well. I'm surprised, but I think that makes this match even more excited. Can TY turn the tide, or is it just going to be aLive all the way?
aLive, sometimes with a bit of an odd reputation. Players sometimes saying he doesn't get as much, of course, of that reputation as he deserves. But here, so far, he has been building it up. And if he can make the finals, it's going to be the biggest moment in his career, even bigger than that IPL finals, that championship he won so many years ago.
I agree. I think winning that first tournament in 2012 was obviously awesome and the highlight of his StarCraft II career up to that point. But back then, he was considered one of the best Terrans in the world. You know, over the years, his career, I wouldn't say it went like a candle and it almost went out, but there weren't that many sparks anymore. Every now and then, aLive would show up and he'd still play a couple of good games. But nobody really looked at aLive and said, like, yeah, I think he has a good chance of winning a GSL or winning an SSL or dominating, you know, any of the other competitions he would participate in. And even when we saw him here, we was like, ah, cool, it's aLive. And for the people who said, like, nah, you guys were sleeping on him. For instance, the last series that aLive played before he came here, he lost 2-0 against Game Time, a North American Zerg player who's obviously quite a strong player, but that's still, this run comes out of nowhere, Pig.
It's a big surprise for a lot of us, but not for him. He has been training hard, working his skills up, spawning down here in the bottom right-hand side of Newkirk Precinct. It is aLive!
There is only one way I can describe what I currently witness on the minimap, and that is perhaps cheeky, because aLive is up to some dirty tricks here in game number 1. But let's take a look at the other Terran here on Newkirk. That's of course spawning in the left bottom side, in the blue, one of the big 4. Give it up for TY.
TY has been a little bit predictable this tournament, opting for a lot of the time. He's been skipping out on his scout, and this is why we're seeing a lot of these aggressive builds come out aLive here, going for a big gamble.
It's funny, we've seen this multiple times throughout the tournament, and this build has been successful. The good old 3-Rex Reaper, and this is one of these builds where if you are TY, you cannot afford to lose your first Reaper. If he sends out the first Reaper, if he's reckless with it, if he's careless, if he's not paying attention, the game can end almost immediately. But Pig, I kind of expected something like this, maybe not in game 1, but it's safe to say that this is going to be a very explosive, very high-paced series.
TvT, it can get into those long macro games, but it is so volatile early on, especially with the speed of the Reaper. This is one of the fastest units in the game, and with a rush like this, it is aiming to just get in there and cause lots of damage very quickly.
It's just 2 Rexes, actually no 3-Rex Reaper over here from aLive. I believe we saw Gumiho bring out the 2-Rex Reaper, and he actually got
Gumio was doing 3 racks, and Jack G did 2.
Ah, okay, yeah. And actually, he got himself in a pretty good position against TY on that map. As aLive is going to send his SCV forward, he is going to see the CC on the low ground. He's like, nice. Now, obviously, best news for TY would be the second Reaper. If TY makes a second Reaper, it's not all that bad. Okay, and he does spot this almost immediately. Oh, he cancels the second Reaper, and he goes for the Marine instead.
Yeah, he wants to save that gas for that Cyclone, I think. TY clearly has a set response for this. So far, shooing away that Reaper, but he's got to be very afraid. The second Reaper's about to join up. TY needs to get back up that ramp.
Yep, definitely want to delay that CC a little bit more than he did so far. You got to be careful with the Reapers aLive. He does get the first SCV, and he should be able to get the second as well, as he used his own SCV as, well, heat shields.
TY tries to get down there and get that red hit point Reaper, but there's 3 Reapers versus just 1 Reaper and a Marine now. Nice bomb there from TY to buy a little bit of time, but I don't think it's enough. The Reapers now, they're going to jump up into this main base. That Hellion is in the production.
Okay, well, he does end up losing one of his Reapers. That's a little bit sloppy, but he gets the Reaper of TY, and now I kind of like the position here from aLive, but he has to be careful. That Hellion is almost out, and he doesn't want to lose his Reapers here.
No, not at all, but only 1 Hellion. It can't necessarily chase these down. The Marine comes out as well. The repair is massive. The Hellion survives. 1 Reaper falls, another Reaper falls. TY defends.
And he actually sneaked out an SCV on the low ground as well. Got a little bit of additional HP there on that CC, but it's not done yet. The TY is definitely not out of the woods, as that CC isn't done yet. He does have 2 Hellions now, and that should obviously be good against the Reapers, but he still has to be very careful.
Yeah, those Reaper grenades are so powerful. aLive behind this. This wasn't an all-in attack. He is transitioning, it looks like, into that starport with the tech lab. His barracks are going to start to float home. However, aLive does not have an expansion Rotterdam. He is still stuck on 1 base.
What do you feel about the Liberator that TY is producing? Tiny bit surprised to see a Liberator this fast. He obviously didn't went for the Cyclone, as he went for the Hellion instead, so he had some of that gas left. And he decided to go for a Liberator. I'm expecting Cloak Banshees here from aLive, as he's going to rally it across the map. aLive won't have a lot of anti-air. This Liberator is going to be incredibly annoying, but it has to do a lot of damage.
We saw Gumio use Liberators to great effect in these messy, down and dirty situations. Often the players will skip out on some of those safety measures that they're normally going for.
Cyclone on the production tab for aLive. That's going to be a little bit of anti-air. He can obviously lock on. I think it's going to be a tiny bit too late, so it's important for aLive that he pulls the SCVs. And hopefully for TY, he will also be able to spot this Banshee leaving. I think whenever you go up against Reapers, it's always kind of hard to calculate when your opponent will go for the next attack, just because these games get so chaotic that quickly. And the Liberator does spot the Banshee. That's pretty big.
Very nice harassment here from TY. The Cyclone is going to be able to tickle that Liberator down just little bit by little bit. But in the meantime, the Liberator is going to deny a lot of mining time and take out a couple of SCVs.
Yeah, really good job there as well by repositioning the Liberator over and over again. He gets 4, 5, maybe 6 or 7 aLive. The Cyclone really doesn't do much damage.
Oh, he
and the
forgot
lock
to lock
expired.
on 1 more time. aLive here with a huge blunder. Didn't cast the second lock on there, and that 12 SCV kills. TY suddenly way ahead in the income. He is looking to be in a very good position. aLive needs to do massive damage with this Cloaked Banshee.
Yeah, but there's quite a few Marines. A little bit of energy saved up as well. If he's able to get this Banshee with a single scan, that would be big. But even if he doesn't, I mean, the missile turret is more than halfway done. Safe to say that TY suddenly got himself in a very good position.
Oh, does snipe down those SCVs building the missile turret, delays it a little bit, but an SCV does survive. aLive needs a bit more damage than this to equalize.
He didn't have to lose that much against the Liberator at all. He was handling it very good at first, split off a couple of SCVs and was only mining from the safe patches. Then he was like doing the dance as well with TY, and then he thought he had enough damage, and he's like, well, you know, I really don't want to lose more mining time. And suddenly, from 4 SCVs, we are looking at 12 casualties, and that's just way too many.
Oh, the Banshee is going to go down as well here. TY going from strength to strength in this game, securing that economy, which he loves so much.
Wow, such a big supply lead for TY already. We're still relatively early in this game, only 6 minutes in, and we see TY taking a 26 supply lead. That's massive, that's very uncommon, and that just shows that this Liberator really did a lot of work. And even before that, against the Reapers, it looked a little dicey at first, but the moment that aLive went for the Hellion and he couldn't get it, that's kind of where TY truly stabilized and actually didn't take that much damage after that.
Right now, some Reapers looking to do a run by, but some Hellions from TY looking to do the same. Both players pretty well positioned to defend. I'm not sure if this is going to be able to find an opening. Looks like he will grab an SCV or two.
Yeah, he should be able to get a couple here with the Reapers. Actually ends up losing one Reaper, but he does get 2 SCVs, so that's something. I mean, the Reapers are not incredibly important anymore, so getting 2 SCVs is nice.
Cyclone going to try and hunt these Reapers down. Is going to catch them out in the open. aLive, he's got to try and preserve every unit he can. He can't afford to lose these. Every single tool he has, he needs to be using as best he can to bring himself back into this game. It's going to be a long, slow comeback if he's going to make it back into this one.
And just look at the worker count. TY still enjoying that 8 SCV advantage, and that's very big as he's making his way across the map. His army is bigger as well. I think the Raven was out maybe a little sooner for aLive, so aLive will have access to multiple auto turrets. But TY shouldn't overcommit it. Gets a lot of shots off on that medevac, and I think he got the kill there. He just killed one of the medevacs, just like that.
Oh, aLive, he knows he's desperate. He has to actually pick up Marines and try to drop across the map. He's using auto turrets, but all they do is damage a single Viking. His Raven is out of energy. He has 2 Marines here against a huge push from TY. TY looks poised to close out game number 1.
Yeah, aLive back is up against the ropes right now as he's sending that one medevac to the other side of the map. This orbital is going to take a lot of damage against those Marines. Will the medevac be able to get anything done at all? I think the orbital might fall here with all the Vikings and the Marines on the low ground.
If that goes down, it's pretty much lights out here for aLive, and it does. The orbital falls. aLive taps out. GG.
Wow.
TY takes game number 1.
Pretty fun game, pretty explosive game. It started off all right for aLive. I think the initial Reaper micro looked really good. Everything seemed to be going according to plan. Not getting the Hellion kind of hurt, but I don't think that was the end of the world. Just that Liberator just did way too much damage and kind of made it an unplayable game. And not only did it do a lot of damage, it also gave the heads up for the Cloak Banshee. So the Cloak Banshee wasn't very successful on the other side of the map.
That's one of those heartbreaking moments as a competitor where, you know, you're so good 99% of the time. You say, you know what, this Cyclone lock-on is going to finish off this Liberator. You look away, you start doing other tasks, and then suddenly you look back and you realize it survived with that tiny sliver of life, gets an extra 6 SCV kills, and suddenly aLive's economy was just way down in the dumps.
Yeah, that was massive. That's something we haven't seen from aLive throughout this entire tournament. Once again, he's been almost flawless, I'd say. I mean, yes, he did drop 2 maps in the group, but he won 10 of them. And he did drop 2 maps against Innovation, but he still won a best of 5 against Innovation. And the way he did it was incredibly impressive. So that was kind of uncharacteristic, but this kind of stuff can happen in TvT. Every now and then you want to roll the dice, you want to be, you know, try to get a build order advantage. If TY would have gone for a single Reaper and then immediately drop an add-on, and he doesn't have any production, he doesn't start a second Reaper or a Marine in this case, then it could have gone so much better for aLive. And maybe he picks up a game number 1.
It was a very nice defense there in the early game from TY, of course. Do question, maybe aLive should have hidden his Reapers a little bit. Maybe he should have come in just little bit by little bit there. And if he surprised him with 3 or 4 Reapers at once, then it would have been completely fine. But in the end, TY was solid with his defense. He holds on, and aLive just with that one moment of weakness doesn't quite manage to defend the Liberator. Of course, I love TY's decision to go for that Liberator. It's such a unique unit. You know, we saw Gumiho do it yesterday, but Gumiho is a wild, crazy Terran player. To see someone as solid and standard as TY recognize that he could mix that in right in that moment was just a very high-level piece of understanding.
It is obviously very smart because he's well aware of the fact that the barracks were proxied in the beginning of the map, which means there isn't going to be that much anti-air at home, and that is exactly what happened.
Here we go. Map number 2 is underway. And spawning down here in the bottom left-hand side of Proxima Station, it is aLive.
Proxima Station, the map that has been the map of doom drops throughout this entire week. We've seen so many of them pick, and they've all been very, very successful.
And his opponent spawning up here in the top right-hand side. The blue Terran, it is TY.
Must feel good getting that quick game number 1 there without really breaking too much of a sweat as soon as, you know, he stabilized early on. And that's what you want to have here in the semifinals, especially against a player that you already lost against earlier in this tournament. Because if he would drop the first game, then he's like, man, just lost 3 games in a row against this guy, you know, like how do I beat him? And now suddenly it's such a mental boost. Obviously a best of 5 is long, especially in TvT. So the war is not won yet, but it's a very solid start for our Blue Terran.
And TY showing that trademark defensive, safe attitude, which we do know him for. Gonna start to SCV scout on this map, and I think this is a great choice. We've seen a lot of players throwing out proxies and all sorts of crazy openings on this map. He's just gonna be very carefully scouting with his SCV to make sure that there's no surprises coming out of aLive.
Indeed. Nothing crazy is happening this game. No proxy barracks, so we should be gearing up for a longer game. But once again, Proxima Station, this is the map where you truly can blink once it's past the 10-11 minute mark. If you make one mistake, one slip up, you don't know where your opponent units are. Before you know it, they are on top of your own production. There are multiple ways into the main base. We've seen it throughout the entire week. Doom drops are incredibly powerful on this map. And there's a couple of other fun tricks where you can get tanks next to the left or right side of your opponent's third base on the low ground, which could be in range of the middle line as the observer is showing us. There's so many things to think of in TvT. I don't even want to think of them all.
It's really cool to see because this map, you have such a safe expansion. Quite a safe third base at first, but then suddenly, once those Doom drops come into play, suddenly once those fourth and fifth bases get taken, the map just evolves into utter chaos. It's so hard to defend every angle that both players are forced to attack as much as possible, and that creates the most chaotic, fun type of StarCraft games. They're the ones I love to watch.
Yep, we want to see Marines die. We saw in one of the games this weekend aLive losing 30 Marines at once, just to a couple of tank shots, but it was all right because he had 7 or 8 bases. I mean, throughout this entire week, aLive has just been on point. His micro has been good, the strategies have been awesome, and the execution has been even better than anything else. Like, he's just been playing great StarCraft.
Good retreat there on his Reaper. TY was waiting on the high ground, but aLive was quick to turn around. Didn't give TY the opportunity to chase that Reaper down. And there are going to be tanks already in production here for aLive. You know, if I was aLive looking at the series yesterday that TY played in TvT, I would say if there's one weakness I can identify, it's that when he loses control of the skies, he does look a little bit uncomfortable. The moment that he actually kind of got the Viking control, got Liberators out in that game number 5 against Gumiho yesterday, he was able to turn it around from what looked like a very bleak situation. But I'd love to see aLive looking for that air control on this map.
Could he see the starport? Did aLive see anything there? Can we take a look at what aLive actually saw in the main base? Yeah, he saw the starport and he sees the tech lab as well. Kind of curious that, or interesting that TY decided to drop his starport there, right? So easy to spot it.
I mean, it doesn't give away too much information, but at the same time, it definitely limits the options. You know, it's Raven or maybe Cloaked Banshee, but aLive here going for a super fast tank push. This is super odd right now. Not a lot of players go for this.
And third CC actually being thrown down by TY in the main base, which means that he's obviously going to have a few less units to work with at first. Now, Ravens are incredibly powerful, defending as well because of those auto turrets. They don't last very long, but those 7 or 8 seconds they do last, they push out a whole lot of damage.
Oh yeah, each auto turret does the damage of about 5 Marines firing at once. It is massive, but this tank push, it's going to have a real range advantage here. Wow. There's only one siege tank out for TY, and it is not in position right now. He only sees this push right now.
Yep, and this actually could be pretty big. I think that tank is in range of at least the supply depot, actually in range of the barrack. I'd go for the reactor probably, right? Don't you think the reactor is a better target here?
There we go. Yeah. Looks like aLive agrees with you, Rotterdam. He's going to start focus firing that down. This Raven is not really too useful with these 2 Vikings out. It looks like it's going to flank in for the auto turret. TY is going to go for the break, but he changes his mind at the last second, takes a lot of damage on that Raven.
Ends up losing the reactor, and indeed, he takes a lot of damage. He's going to have to repair it. Now it's going to be 2 tanks. I really like this aggressive move out from aLive. He's already getting some very serious value out of this push. And also, look at the production tab. +1 is on the way. Stim is going to be a lot faster, +1 armor as well. If there's one thing that aLive has been doing throughout this entire week is also rushing out those upgrades. He's okay with having bases a tiny bit later as long as he has the upgrade advantage and he can start trading.
And he takes advantage of this aggression. Even though aLive's 3rd command center was a little bit later, he gets to build it on location, doesn't have to waste time floating it down. And now, after doing all this damage, just picks up with those siege tanks and walks home. A fantastic maneuver, gaining him a small edge.
Yep, I like that as well. Don't overstay your welcome. You picked off a reactor, you got a couple of supply depots, and you just slowed TY down. You even forced that CC to lift off, which means it wasn't building any SCVs. You know, TY would have loved to be producing 3 SCVs at once. This means aLive has a minor work account now, and everything I think is going right now pretty damn decent for aLive. The only thing he has to worry about is maybe that Raven somehow finding a way into his main base, dropping out the turrets, killing a couple of SCVs. But as long as aLive leaves a couple of units behind or keeps track of that Raven, you gotta love his position right now, Pig.
TY is trying to get back out a little bit of control on his corner of the map. But being pinned in for so long is definitely a dangerous feeling. He doesn't have a lot of vision of what's going on. He doesn't have a good idea of what aLive's follow-up is, and information is everything in StarCraft. If you can't see what your opponent's goal is in the game, it's very hard to counter it.
Look at this one Reaper just being a little bit annoying, dropping multiple grenades. These Marines would really like to pick it off, but aLive's not going to give it to him that easily. Wants to drop one more grenade. This time the Marines won't step on top of it. Reaper might finally fall now.
Oh, does end up getting taken out there, but look at the advantage we see from that early game. aLive now up about 15 supply, and if we look at his production, I believe his 1-1 is already finished. He's got his 5 barracks going. He's got a nice little army out here. Everything is just a little bit ahead for aLive.
Getting his armory, second factory being thrown on as well. I like the fact that TY kept a tank over here. He knows about drops as well on this map, and he also has the Vikings patrolling on the outskirts of his bases. He wants to keep himself safe. Once again, these eBays, by the way, they ask to be sniped. It's this map is notorious for all the Doom drops, and here we go, that's 4 medevacts. Once again, aLive at this point doesn't have stim, doesn't have the upgrades yet. Obviously, the Vikings are scary, but if these units unload, TY is in a world of trouble.
There's only one Viking up there, a TY. He's not ready for this. He's bringing up the other Vikings and Ravens. These medevacts are on a one-way journey, but the tanks do get sieged up.
There is one tank though for TY, and that's going to make his life a tiny bit easier. He has a lot of Vikings, so shooting down these medevacts would be nice. Decided not to use the energy yet. Perhaps he's waiting for his upgrades to finish up before he wants to engage.
Oh, looks like aLive going to pick up some of those Marines and get on out of there with those medevacts. A great choice. But actually, a few medevacts will remain.
He's flying to the natural, I think. He's going to drop in the natural as well.
Very
this is the
nice.
aLive we've seen over the last few days. He likes to be everywhere at once. There's 2 medevacts on the south side of the map that are heading towards this perhaps north base as well. But let's see what these Marines can get done. But so far, this is already a very successful drop, I'd say.
Stim finally finishes for TY. He can start to chase it out of his natural, but at the same time, aLive looking for openings on the front. Doesn't find a weakness there. Already denying so much mining time on that main base, Rotterdam.
Yep, I mean, even though TY did a good job in not taking a terrible fight and losing everything at once or just losing way too many units, this one Liberator is going to make it very awkward for these tanks. He is losing a lot of mining time, so even if all these tanks die, I think that aLive is all right with how this went.
Yeah, this is a fantastic trade. He's already gearing up with another huge push. He's taking a 4th base behind this. His 2-2 upgrades are almost finished, Rotterdam.
And I don't think TY even has an armory, so it's going to take a very, very long... Okay, he does have an armory, but he just didn't start the upgrades yet. He also lost one of the E-bays, if I'm correct. Yeah, his upgrades did finish up, but he lost an eBay, so that's also going to be annoying. aLive will be able to enjoy a massive upgrade advantage. And if you're new to StarCraft II, upgrades with Marines are everything. They shoot so fast, it makes so much difference.
Marine tank medevac, complete map control for aLive. Look at that mini-map. There are red dots everywhere. He can see everything that's going on, and TY is just trapped in his corner of the map. He's trying to spread out now, but aLive is keeping him cornered, and there's a big drop going down the right-hand side of the map.
Ooh, one medevac is incredibly low on HP. It's always a little bit risky, but there's not a single missile turret here, not a single Marine here as well. So aLive will be able to... Okay, there's a missile turret there in the back of the natural. But, I mean, it's already decent. He's getting 7 more SCVs. He's pulling the army out of position. This perhaps means that aLive wants to go for it, but there's still a whole bunch of tanks there for TY, so he has to be careful.
aLive showing the level of play he did in the group stage. He's going to dive on top. The decisiveness here, jumping on top of the siege tanks. Will he have enough?
Yes.
Looks like he will.
These upgrades, Big. Upgrades, upgrades, upgrades. 2-2 against 1-1. That's an unfair fight. Combat shield wasn't even done yet. All of these tanks have been picked up, and 22 SCVs have gone down as well.
aLive here, just showing a masterclass on how to pull his opponent apart, pushing his way in relentlessly. The siege tanks are moving forwards. These 2-2 Marines snipe that last siege tank of TY, and it looks like TY's last units are just getting torn apart. He cannot break this siege tank contain.
aLive wins game number 2 on Proxima. GG.
Very nice play there from aLive. Rallies in game number 2 after a rough start to the series. And he shows that he is ready to show his A game on this main stage. All right, let's hear from the boys on the desk about their thoughts on this series so far.
Yes, indeed. Very, very fast and rip-roaring to get first games there to start things off as TY is able to take the first game there against aLive. So let's start with game number 1, of course, as we do look into exactly how that went down. So opening up with a 2-Rax Proxy Reaper and then not being able to get too much done with it, it seemed.
No, he really didn't. Like, it looked a little bit scary for a moment for TY, but a very good job holding on. And hi, Claris. You know, TY's defense was really quite fantastic. And in fact, just overall through the series, they kind of, both the players stayed within their roles, right? Like, he went into Cloaked Banshee after those Reapers, but TY was just doing some, like, decent harassment with the Liberator and everything. And it was pretty good.
Well, that Liberator itself got a whole lot more damage done than I ever thought it was going to get done.
Oh,
going up against the Cyclone.
Yeah, that was wild. Like, he locked on. I'm like, okay, are you going to run from this? No, he'll just sit there and keep repositioning it. And then the lock-on runs out. The Liberator's still alive. It got a lot more kills than you would think it would, right? But that was like some great counter-harassment from TY.
Yeah, and then from that point on, Todd?
I was a bit surprised to see aLive proxy. It feels so necessary, especially like you see in game 2 how good he is in those regular games. So happy to see him do a little bit better. Artosis and me had a lot of exchanges here after game 1. He was looking at me after game 2. I just gave him the stare, like this is how it goes. But yeah, aLive, I really think that in those longer games when you start dropping, when it's about positional play, he's just maybe slightly better than TY.
Yeah, that's what I want to talk about, actually, game number 2. Moving on, of course. Starting with a 2-tank push and getting a little bit of damage done, but it seemed like aLive just then decided to step up the drop, step up the multitasking, and take him to a completely different game to game number 1.
It's like he got a little bit of a tempo advantage. He took that a really long way. I do kind of agree with you, Todd, that when you get into that kind of aggressive dropping mode where you're trying to get those big drops off for the big damage, aLive's really good at that. Like, he was on top of having his stim done, getting that drop in at kind of a random time. And TY was put on his back foot really quickly and never really recovered from that.
Is that where aLive needs to continue going in these games, or did it work very well because he kind of set the tone early with that first Proxy Reaper, which was very aggressive, and then made such a contrasting game number 2? Is that why it works so well, or does aLive just thrive there in the game 2?
I think so, yeah. I think he doesn't have to go for some kind of early on very aggressive builds. Even tank pushers are not that necessary, but if he feels like he can go for one and he pulls it off and he takes a lead, I expect all the games to go like this. He's going to stay solid throughout the whole way. TvT can be volatile, though. We've seen what TY can do just from one single scan. Hitting his main when he has enough units there, he's already in his head. He just computes immediately. He knows where the Maviacs are on the map, corners them, catches them, so no mistakes are allowed from either side. And in the previous one, that was TY making the mistakes.
So how does TY hunker down against that kind of style? Because we saw aLive exhibiting that heavy drop play against all of the Terrans that he's gone up against in this tournament so far. And it has hurt them and it has weakened them. How does TY just build the defense to stop aLive's multitasking?
Well, I think he needs to be out on the map just a little bit more than what we've seen so far. Back when Tankovacs were a thing and you could fly them around, that's when TY's TvT was absolutely the best in the world. Like, he was dominating because he was out there on the map, like, kind of poking nonstop. And that would allow him to keep tabs on his opponent's army a bit better. In this past game, he just didn't really have that much vision, and aLive was able to just fly in wherever he wanted.
I completely agree. A couple of Marines down on the map goes a long way. We see the Sensor Towers helping, but even that, you know, like I think that afterburner goes pretty quick inside of that vision. And then once you're unloading inside of your opponent's base and sieging the tanks, it already means a lot of trouble. So TY is going to have to make some small adjustments and just play better overall. That's why StarCraft is the best damn game. That's because you have to play better than your opponents, and it's no different here for TY.
And one-on-one, and it's all on you if you make the mistakes. Of course, we're going to go to a short break now, but when we are back, it will be game number 3 here from the Spodek Arena for the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice.